Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. Um, I won't forget, Vicky, I promise. Here we go. I was given a really great compliment the other day by someone I didn't know. It was a comment. And they said that I take difficult subject matter and make it not so difficult with a little bit of humor thrown in. I think that's very important. I think you have to try to sometimes laugh through the tears. Chapter in my book. And maybe that's just a gift I have because I know I'm a writer and a speaker. But perhaps when things get a little tense, I'm supposed to lighten it up a little bit. So I know we're certainly getting a lot of attention on these hospice stories as they're coming in from around the world with the people coming on. The thing I want to say is this chapter 8, is very important. It so happens it's a wife that I met during the situation at the care center, but it could pertain effortlessly to a man. And I wrote about it in my book, my personal book. So the thing is, chapter 8, it says, a wife questions how she will start over after her husband's death, and what will she do with her time alone. Now, some of you are saying, oh, here we go again. Then don't. Come and tune on. Go away. Because this is for people who want to get some information about life and what they just may go through at some point. And also, it's a wonderful storybook. So, a wife questions how she will start over after her husband's passing, transition, and death, and what she will do with her time alone. Now, chapter 13 in my book, ta-da, Committed to Love, one of the chapters, chapter 13, it says, who will care for me? That's similar. Chapter 14, facing my fears and future as a widow. Chapter 18, taking care of myself. I told you from the beginning that the reason I can relate to you, 1,000,000 of yous, or 10 million of yous, is because I deal with life. I am 76 years old. I have been through more than most people will be in 10 lifetimes, and I'm very proud of that. But I know about what I'm capable of and still learning, and what you might have to face in your future. So I would not give up on my books. I would not give up on me. And I, in fact, would tell, instead of sharing with one friend, why don't you share it with 10? Thank you. And if I look good today, it's because I had lunch with someone. I'm extremely full. I did not want to read, but God told me to read my books. End of it. I told you yesterday that I was going to read these chapters fully. When I'm done with this book, I also told you there's 24 stories. When I'm done with this book, I will go and highlight the chapters in my book that I think are the most empowering, informational, impactful, those that have the most relativity. I don't know if relativity is the right word. Those that have the most, I like impact. Those that would have the most ability to be able to take you to make it where you're okay. That's what I'm saying, is I'm going to pick the most important chapters out of my book, read them in its entirety, not like I did before in 2 or 3 times. I'm reading chapters in their entirety from now on so that you can grasp the fullness. I did hear from my webmaster. All my readings from my book shall be almost on my website very soon, on my books page, on my website, SusanMintz.com, on the books page. If they're not already, where it says Susan Reads Committed to Love, if they're not all up there yet, they're going to be within the next day or two. And on my YouTube channel. And then someone said to connect that to my Instagram. Now, there's an awful lot of stuff I don't deal with. I mean, I don't know this. I'm a good writer, speaker, tell a great story. But you know what? These other media platforms, that's for all you to help me with. You get me out. all right? Or tell your kids to. They were born with gadgets. So let me just read this chapter one more time. I think the glasses are what have you mostly tuning in more than anything. What I'm going to wear on my glasses. Great comments. Hospice Heart Glasses. Hello, David. Here's chapter 8 today, Tuesday, whatever the date is, the 14th. A wife questions how she will start over after her husband's death, and what will she do with her time alone. This is a very significant chapter, and I'm going to read it. So if you want to stay with me a little longer than usual, that's great. If not, go to my Facebook page, and you'll be able to come on in when you want. Quote, I will take the time to let the time take care of me. That's extremely important. I will take the time to let the time take care of me, end quote. Think about it. January 17th, 1999. Dear Jeff, according to Webster's Dictionary, commitment means to pledge, to obligate oneself, or to promise. For me, commitment also meant responsibility. When I said the words, quote, until death do us part, on January 11, 1969, I made my commitment to you. That unconditional promise continued to remain the most important aspect of my relationship with you. There were many times during our 25-year marriage when I didn't like you. I didn't like him a lot. But, always a but, I never stopped loving you. Our relationship was turbulent, and our quarrels over your homosexuality nearly destroyed me. But no matter how many times I tried to leave you, I never could. If our marriage were to end, it would have had to be one. You would have had to be the one who left. For with you, my life was so fulfilling and incredibly rewarding. It was a roller coaster ride that I never wanted to get off. There was passion, and it was exciting. My world revolved around our home and your career. I was determined to make our relationship work because we were worth fighting for. Are you in a relationship worth fighting for? Well, get the gloves out, kids, because if you think it's all going to be easy, no, it won't. Relationships, even with your girlfriends, are hard. Relationships with boyfriends are hard. Relationships with your parents are challenging. Relationships, go live on an island alone and crack coconuts like Tom Hanks did in Castaway. That's good. That's good for you. After you died, I didn't know if I would be able to go on. For weeks, I didn't want to get out of bed. I'd pull the covers over my head and clutch your pillow to my chest. I pushed myself to leave the house. And when it was time to come home, I'd ask myself, what did I have to come home to? It was an effort to do the things I once enjoyed doing, and it was painful to remember the wonderful times we shared. The new life I had to make for myself felt awkward and uncomfortable. I was thrown into situations that were painfully difficult to accept, and I was forced to make endless adjustments and compromises to issues and circumstances I did not understand. I was not prepared to be alone, nor did I want to be. My life had been drastically changed, and I had to change and adjust to it. This transition from married life to widowhood took a very long time. I went forwards and backwards, yet I felt like I was going nowhere at all. However, one day, what I thought would be an impossible task had been accomplished. I had succeeded in making a new life for myself. Yes, go back and listen to that paragraph again. Last week at go back and listen to it. I have to get through this chapter because it's so important. Last week at the care center, I met a woman who would soon be widowed. Her concerns and the issues she addressed about her uncertain future were the same ones that I had to deal with after you died. This remarkable woman and her passionate story seemed even more appropriate at this time because she and I met on the night of January 11th. Tonight would have been our 30th wedding anniversary. Oof, I'm not crying tonight. I can't deal with it. As I went on shift, tonight would have been our 30th wedding anniversary, January 11th, 1999. How's that? As I went on shift and checked in that night, it was extremely quiet. Most of the patients were sleeping, and there were only a few visitors around. I noticed, oh no, I can see her. See, when I read these stories again, I can see these people. Oh, thank you, God, for telling me to read my story so I could see these people again. Most of the patients were sleeping, and there were only a few visitors around. I noticed a magnificent-looking woman standing in the doorway of the room. I couldn't stop staring at her, and though I tried not to be obvious, I couldn't help myself. She was tall, stunning, and stately, with a flawless complexion of color, the color of a porcelain doll. Her grayish-white hair was cut in a Dutch boy style that framed her finely chiseled features. I had no idea how old she was, but she radiated a natural beauty that made her look comfortable with herself, no matter what her age might be. She looked like she belonged on the cover of a magazine. I walked towards her and said, quote, "Hello, my name is Susan, and I am a volunteer here tonight. If I can get you anything, please don't hesitate to ask," end quote. She looked at me and said, quote, "How can you have such a beautiful..." Sorry, folks. She said, she looked at me and said, so anyway, I said, "Hello, my name is Susan, and I'm a volunteer here tonight at the care center. If I can get you anything, please don't hesitate to ask." And here's this tall, stately, elegant, magnificent woman that any woman would want to look like. So she looks at me and said, quote, "How can you have such a beautiful tan in the middle of January? I always loved the sun, but I was told to avoid it at all costs." Well, I guess that says a lot for my Mayflower heritage, end quote. I said, "I think that you are absolutely breathtaking. I shall call us a mutual admiration society of two," end quote. We smiled at each other as if we had shared something very special. She's tall and elegant with a porcelain skin, white doll face, and me, I'm shorter and I'm tan, and we smiled at each other as if we'd shared something special. She said, quote, "I like that. I think that most people always want to look like someone else. Right now, I'd like to be someone else," end quote. I asked her if she had ever modeled. She laughed and said, quote, "I did that for many years. Is it that obvious?" "Oh, yes," end quote. "Oh, yes," I said. "As soon as I saw you, that was the first thing I thought of," end quote. She responded, quote, "That's how I met my husband 35 years ago. We made the perfect 10. I was always so tall and thin, and he was one big hunk of a man," end quote. She beamed as she spoke about him. I asked her if she would like some company, and she said, quote, "Yes," end quote. As we went into the room, she closed the door, and she said, quote, "I like my privacy. I brought my husband in for pain management 2 days ago. Even though he's heavily medicated, we still manage to communicate with each other," end quote. I watched how they interacted. She was absolutely devoted and I don't know that one, desperately in love with him. I don't know what that word was. She was absolutely devoted, emanated, exuded love for him, while his eyes followed her every movement, responding to her voice. So she was devoted, she adored him, and he followed her with his eyes, even though he was heavily medicated, responding to everything she said, every movement with her voice. Everything she did reminded me of the time when you and I were going through the very same thing. I found myself getting emotionally caught up in their relationship, and I almost had to leave the room. She said, quote, "Why do you volunteer for hospice?" End quote. I responded, quote, "My husband died 4 years ago, and hospice came into our home and helped me care for him." End quote. She said, quote, "My husband had a boating accident 34 years ago that left him disabled. Now he has Hodgkin's disease, and he was such a big, large man, I needed to bring him here. I wanted him to remain at home, but it was too difficult." End quote. She looked at me with her gorgeous blue eyes and said, quote, "What am I going to do with my time when this is over?" I made a commitment to him 34 years ago, and even when he was seriously hurt, I was the one who took care of him. What will I do with my time? We're good. She continued, think about it, how many widows and widowers or relationships are broken up, and you wonder what you're going to do with your time. Very different when you still have that person in your life as when they're gone. She continued, quote, "When I took my wedding vows and said, quote, I do, I said it with my heart. No matter whatever happened, there would be no turning back. I would love him forever, would never have left him, and I would never have given up on us. That's what I believe, and that's what I did." End quote. Now her statement brought tears to my eyes because I felt the same way. We both believed in the power of the word, quote, commitment. Looking at this beautiful woman, I could never have imagined that she had ever known anything but fun or had a care in the world. However, as she continued her story, it was just the opposite. She said, quote, "I met my husband while I was modeling. We fell in love immediately. We had a son." Listen to this one. You may want to shut me down now. "We had a son." There you go. All right. However, as she continued her story, it was just the opposite. She said, quote, "I met my husband while I was modeling. We fell in love immediately. We had a son who developed leukemia when he was 17 years old. He died 6 months later. We tried everything, but it happened so quickly. Nothing the doctors did would work. It was the most painful experience we could ever have imagined. We dealt with it together, and somehow it made us stronger. 3 years later, my husband was in a serious boating accident, and for weeks I didn't know if he would live or die. He'd been confined to a wheelchair ever since. My life was thrown into turmoil when our son died, and then I had to deal with this. But my husband needed me, and I was determined to make it the best it could be. Now all I can think about is how difficult it will be without him." End quote. I went to get her a cup of coffee, and when I came back, his hearing his hearing aid, oh, I remember this. His hearing aid had fallen out. Right, let's start again, all right? You're going to have to back up a few times with this one. It's a wonderful story. I went to get her a cup of coffee, and when I came back, his hearing aid had fallen out. The oxygen tubing from his nose had gotten tangled under the sheets, and twisted around the hospital gown. He was miserable and fidgeting with everything. She couldn't get the hearing aid back in his ear and asked me if I would help. We were so clumsy, and though we tried desperately not to laugh, it was very comical. I said, I feel like one of the Three Stooges. I don't think that 6 hands are better than 2 right now, end quote. An aide came into the room when we looked at her and we burst out laughing. It took us 15 minutes to finally get his little hearing aid back into place and undo the twisted tube. When we stepped outside, she said, quote, "Thank you. I hadn't had a good laugh in a long time. What am I going to do with all my time afterwards? There are no children or grandchildren to fuss over, and I've spent most of my time caring for him. I'm going to need a lot of time to adjust to my, quote, new skin. I used to play golf, liked to paint, and traveled when I was modeling. I'm not going to be able to make any long-term plans, and I'll just have to try to take each day as it comes," end quote. I said, quote, "Take the time to let the time take care of you. Good night, beautiful lady," end quote. Her story was like looking in the mirror. I came by several times during the week to visit with her. We always giggled over the little project that brought us together. I never gave her any advice, nor did she ask for any. We were 2 women talking about similar feelings and issues. I told her how I dealt with my time after you died and some of the situations I had to face. We understood each other, and our time together helped us both. I thought about this woman a lot during the week. I was in awe of her character, strength, determination, loyalty, but mostly it was her positive attitude about life that I admired. And our conversation brought up many of the same issues that I had to deal with after you passed away. We never had any children. My life revolved around you, Jeffrey, and your career. And I was going to have a lot of time afterwards, too. I questioned what I was going to do with the empty spaces and voids in my life. But I didn't rush into anything too quickly. I had many options afterwards, and I didn't feel comfortable, however, with any of them. I was raw and numb and knew that I had to take one day at a time. Time can work both for you and against you. I chose to take a lot of time to heal, to deal with my loss and grief, and hope that in time I would gain the strength to go on. When I felt I needed support and the help from family and friends, I asked for it. I had no children or that type of thing. Jeffrey had his parents. But I had a few great friends that I could count on. I would ask for it. But my new life and the future ahead were for me to determine, and it was up to me to see myself through it. I know that having a positive attitude, though, also helped. Slowly, I went back to the things I had previously enjoyed, but I also allowed new interests and new people into my life. This lady, she was going to be all right one day, because she was going to, quote, take the time to let the time take care of her. I'll say so long for a little while. I love you, and happy birthday. January 17th. That was his birthday. If that's not a wonderful story about commitment and love and devotion, and how we see people every day on the street. We talk to people every day in our comings and goings. We don't know their stories. We look at them Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they pretty? Are they ugly? Are they fat? Are they thin? Are they black? Are they white? Are they this? Are they that? You don't have a clue about anybody's life unless it's your own. And I'm saying that really deep down in my gut right now. Don't judge because you think you know somebody by the way they look. This woman looked like she belonged on the cover of every magazine. And here she's married to this big, bulky guy, the number 10 she called him. She looked like she didn't have a care in the world, and she loses her son at 17 from leukemia. Then 3 years later, her husband's paralyzed, and then he gets Parkinson's, and she wouldn't leave him. She was devoted to him. Yeah, my story is mine. Committed to love. That's my story. And no one can have it. And the chapters in this book are yours, if you want it. The stories in here, Hospice Heart, and I held their hands with a Hospice Heart. These are their stories. I just could relate. Get out in the real world. You all have a story. And you all can write. You may not get it published. You may not want to do anything with it. But the one thing I tell you every time is to write. Write your stuff down. God, this collar's killing me. So, I will say for today that it is a very good day. It is a good day because I completed another chapter in this marvelous book that you can go to SusanMintz.com and read. Sometimes I get people who want to know about me. It's called SusanMintz.com. Everything you could ever want to know. If God took me right now, if this lightning light ended up being lightning on me, my hair would turn white, I would not be this tan, but I can promise you, you will go to SusanMintz.com and you'll know everything you need to know about me. I tell people that, especially men. No, I'm not going to chat with you like this. This is not. God told me to read my books, not to meet you and chat with you. Just putting that out there. But you can go to my website. I believe in love. I believe, like Cher said, you believe in love after love. Yes, I do. Have I experienced it yet? Perhaps. Perhaps. But I am dedicated and committed to reading my stories, to reading it into my phone, helping people, and whatever else God brings along, I hope I do it to His satisfaction. I am a woman who believes that your character outlives you. Your legacy is what you do leave in this world. And whether, you know me, I want a movie made of my story, I want a series about these. Don't tell me that these 24 stories aren't as good as anything on any of the streaming services. Please. They're worth a fortune in the right hands, and all I want to do is help people with the money. I love you all. Thank you so much. I know that these stories are touching you. They're touching you because they are real. They are life. Yes, they're sad, but there's hope, and there's faith, and there's God's never-ending love and grace for you. It was a good day. It was a really good day. Are these dramatic or not? I could wear these to the Academy Awards if we ever get that movie made. I shall say, shalom, hello, shalom, goodbye, and shalom, peace. Peace. Be kind. Be patient. Don't judge. Call someone. Tell them you love them. And just remember you're not alone. Just when you think you might be the only one going through something, you're not. There's millions of people around the world who are experiencing exactly what you are, just in their own way. So God bless you, and let me hit finish. Then tonight before I go to bed, I watch myself, and I make myself laugh, because I think I do take a serious subject and give it a twist. God bless you all. Bye. Shalom. See you tomorrow night 5:30 for chapter 9. Oh, not telling you a thing about it. Not a thing.